Jeepers, guys, there was a lot of news this week.
Boy, howdy, there sure was, David. And we talked a little bit about it yesterday. We had a big Venezuelan kidnapping invasion special.
But that's not all that happened this week. There was other news. So now it's time to talk about that.
Let's do it.
Totally. At the first of the year, Zoran Mamdani was sworn in as mayor of New York. That was pretty cool. He is sworn in at a subway station, which I didn't know that was where they did it, but I guess,
He's a man of the people, right? Very, very optics-sensitive fella, this Mamdani. I thought you were saying he was sworn in at a Subway sandwich shop, which is like, what the hell? Yeah, that's a first and a last.
So since that whole Jared incident, the Subway's been looking for a new spokesperson, and they could do a lot worse than Zoran Mamdani.
He'll be like demanding they bring back the $5 footlong.
Just people are totally incensed online, like, look at how small his pants are. Bring back Jared.
Don't bring back Jared. Leave him in jail.
Yeah.
Is he still in jail where he belongs? I hope so.
Probably. Who cares? We've already wasted more time thinking about him than we should have.
All right.
Moving back to Zoran Mamdani.
Right. So he immediately got into a little bit of controversy. I think he gave a pretty reasonable explanation, just immediately glazing Mamdani here. But so the first executive action as mayor was to nullify all executive actions signed by Eric Adams after his 2024 indictment. He's indicted for all this bribery stuff.
Nothing.
Yeah, from this whole so Turkish citizens were bribing him for something. I don't know. There's a lot of details to that. But Eric Adams was pardoned by the Trump administration in exchange for further cooperation with ICE. A lot of people saw his tenure as mayor as illegitimate, and in that spirit, Mamdani nullified all of his executive orders after 2024.
I was reading this article in the New York Times that was talking about these couple anti-Semitism related executive orders that he rolled back, and basically the article was saying they just didn't know how to sell that. What they settled on was this: get rid of all these orders since he got indicted, and of course they had to put some of them back because they weren't all bad executive orders, but they kind of it's too hard to justify, or it's too hard. You don't want to go through the fight of having to explain rolling back these orders of basically to allow the city to divest some in Israeli interests and no longer accepting some kind of some definition of what anti-Semitism is that is a little bit dubious.
Yeah, the IHRA definition, which I read the definition of anti-Semitism according to IHRA, and I think the sticking points were probably these things. The definition of anti-Semitism is denying Jewish people their right to self-determination by claiming the existence of the state of Israel as a racist endeavor. By this definition, if you are criticizing the state of Israel or saying it as a racist endeavor, that would be the definition of anti-Semitism. Or
that's an example of anti-Semitism.
Right, that's an example of anti-Semitism. And further, that applying double standards of the state of Israel by expecting behavior not expected by other democratic nation. I think that one is pretty shaky. If it is anti-Semitic to expect things that you wouldn't expect of other democratic nations, you could define that as a lot of criticisms. I think.
No, I mean, do you not understand what that is getting at? The point is that America is a democratic nation. There's lots of democratic nations. They do lots of bad things despite being democratic nations. I think that the point is that repeated targeted criticism of Israel and applying double standards on them for doing stuff that is similar to what other democracies do is kind of one way. I kind of agree that this is a form of anti-Semitism sometimes. It's not, shouldn't be equated with toss them in gas chambers, but it's a focus like an unfair focus on the wrongdoing of Jews.
Sure, but like I get what you're getting at. Like definitely. Like you could it could be like a symptom of the anti-Semitism that you are like not trying to express as openly. Like this is a way to kind of cover for like anti-Semitic feeling, like, oh, I'm not against the Jewish people, but Israel does this, and you wouldn't apply that standard to the United States, for example. But I think that you could use this pretty broadly. Some democratic nations do have different levels of representation based on ethnic status, right? Like it's not just Israel that does that, like, or religious affiliation. If you were to criticize them for that and not criticize Lebanon, for example, like that would be a double standard. But, like you're not always talking about Lebanon. Sometimes you just want to talk about Israel.
Sure.
If you haven't condemned every genocide in the world, can you condemn the one that Israel's doing?
Right. So that's the big sticking point here, I think, is the last one, is if you draw comparisons of contemporary Israeli policy to that of the Nazis, that is anti-Semitism. I think a lot of people get caught up with that one because every conversation online eventually is talking about Hitler, right? And a lot of people have been making comparisons because of the apparent ethnic cleansing of Gaza that has been happening for a while.
I kind of wonder, I mean, I feel like there's, I haven't read this list. I don't know why there's an executive order related to this list. For example, I could see stuff like this being used to say that someone is engaging in hate speech, which I think basically means that you can give them more prison time if they have committed some crime, and they also it was a hate crime. I don't know what other purpose this has, but I know, the Trump administration is they're very excited about policing speech, right? And taking people who say things that they claim are beyond the pale and, tossing them and, taking away their immigration status or, punishing them in other ways. So I guess there's some of this, whatever, in the context of the couple bullet points of notes that you wrote down is this is kind of informative and educational for people who haven't thought much about what are how does anti-Semitism how does it come out? How is it expressed in the world? It's a little bit educational, and that's great. But if it's just okay, if you can check any of these boxes, then you can take away a student visa. Not so great. And
that's kind of how it was being used. It was being used to target students and stuff like that, to chill speech on campuses. And, for that reason, primarily, I think is why they saw the need to revoke that order.
How funny is it that we've spent all of this time talking about what the mayor of New York thinks about Israel and the finer abstruse points of racism, and none about his actual policy or shit that matters in day-to-day New York
actual
life.
Policy. Yeah, this is.
It is, but does the definition of anti-Semitism, affect the New Yorkers' day-to-day life as much as, I don't know, bus prices or grocery store stuff? Or
so we just talked about how it affects it. So let's move on to something else, Dan.
But I think there are other things that were repealed that had a greater effect on New Yorkers' everyday experience. Eric Adams was pretty chummy with ICE, and Mamdani is signaling a move away from cooperation with ICE by revoking the order that allows ICE to use Rikers Island, the famous prison.
That's not the one where Jeffrey Epstein was killed, is it?
I don't think so. I thought that was a federal prison, right?
He died in the Metro Correctional Center in New York City. Okay, so it says DuckDuckGo.
Yeah, Rikers is the famous one. But that's why you might have thought, because he did die in a prison in New York City. So if you know a prison in New York City, it's probably Rikers Island.
I found a pretty interesting one. I found this in The Economist. In Ghana, we worry about freedom of speech in America. And we talked about recently a law in China restricting speech of influencers to stick in their lane and only talk about things that they have like formal education in. Well, there's a really interesting law to prevent the spread of online misinformation in Ghana. This is a reporting requirement so basically there's a lot of Pentecostal Christians in Ghana, and there's a presidential envoy for interfaith and ecumenical relations in the office of the president is requiring prophesiers to report their prophecies that are relevant to like the leadership of the country so that they can find out who's making fake prophecies.
Hell yeah,
This
dude.
is great.
Very old school.
This
The
is a great
Roman
idea.
Empire also banned soothsaying completely.
Wait, really?
Ghana's a little
Really?
more progressive.
Yeah, they
Soothsayers
have,
had
like,
a
a whole-
nasty habit of telling people that they were going to be emperor one day because, they tell people what they want to hear. And then those
Okay.
people would take it very seriously because they all took it very seriously, and also people want to be emperor. And that's a convenient excuse, and so it led to a lot of rebellions. So like during purges, like that was one of the main crimes was they consulted a soothsayer. They'd be like, no, I was just asking about my poor sick mother. And they'd be like, nope, too bad.
In this case, like there was like a helicopter crash, and I think the president of Ghana died last year, or some very high-ranking person in the government. And then all these viral videos came out of people having made prophecies about there might be some air traffic incident or stuff like that, and that's when they started this new requirement. But yeah, the head of this whatever liaison to the office of the president, ecumenical blah blah, said, turns out a lot of these prophecies are fake.
No kidding, dude. Yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
If so, that's a
That's
shock to
funny.
me, dude. I believe every prophecy I read online.
So I really want this to catch on as a thing because I would love there to be just some index of true
Prophecies.
and false prophecies. I want to see every soothsayer's hit rate. We're gonna stack up Alex Jones against the Pope, snake handlers in the Deep South. They're gonna go up against Pentecostal preachers in Ghana.
Yeah, a real data set on this would be really good. So anyway, yeah. So props to you, Ghana. I think freedom of speech was definitely worth sacrificing in this case. Okay, so I wrote this bullet point down, and then of course I've lost total track, and also I wasn't able to join the episode last week, so I'm not sure how much you guys covered about this, but there were like millions and millions more Epstein documents that they're just like, oh yeah, those exist too. We didn't know about those.
The update from last week is the millions more part of it. There was some, then there were millions, and now there are millions more. They just keep finding them.
Yeah, and right, which is like a little. I mean, either they're lying or they're incompetent. They're obviously incompetent. They're obviously both lying and incompetent. But it's like a little bit hard to fathom. Like when it comes to like millions of documents, it's like, where did they go wrong? And I feel like they probably just went wrong in making zero effort to find all documents in the first place. I feel like that's probably where they went wrong. Like, because you could just like, there's such a thing as an email blast at the Department of Justice, right? It can be like, hey, hi everyone, we are required to turn over all the Epstein files. Please add references to folders containing Epstein files in this spreadsheet. I don't know.
I mean, to be
feel like they
fair,
can
like
track it
people
down.
could have quit or, been fired, or who would have that
potentially
knowledge.
That there are some documents that they felt more or less competent that they would be able to get the incriminating information out of.
But yeah, it is pretty suspicious to just suddenly find, millions and millions more. It's not just a little bit.
So
it could be just like it could be the people quitting like that funny thing that happens at like companies sometimes where someone quits and they were supposed to save all their work on a shared drive and no one notices that all of their work is missing until you like check their personal files months later. It could just be really bad communication.
Yeah, that makes sense. Though, yeah, I mean, right. Given how many times they've said, oh yeah, we've searched for everything, we've gotten to the bottom of it, there's nothing there, etc.
I noticed you put aside some examples from the recent leaks.
Yeah, I mean, oh no, these are not from the leaks. So I actually tried to use the website to like examine the Epstein files some, I don't know, it's like not at all organized is how I would put it. Like, yeah, clearly it's quite a task to like make anything of this stuff. And so, for example,
Disclosures, I meant. Disclosure would be the like that. It's not a leak if they did it on
right,
purpose. These are
right.
disclosures.
Yeah, that's right. So, yeah, I mean, there's a search, and so you can search for keywords and shows you documents that contain that word. So I searched for banana, and I found like mostly like a long household manual, like just
Oh yeah. I was wondering why you pulled this aside. So you were literally searching for the word banana.
yeah, I just searched for the word banana just to like see like what comes up. I mean, of course, I didn't read this. It's like 60 pages of just like instructions on how the housekeeper and butler should like manage some fancy house, but it contains the word banana. So, there you go. The Epstein file. Millions of Epstein documents. There's a whole lot of useless bullshit in these millions
it's
of
really
documents.
strange. I guess probably a lot of people have SOPs for their help, but it's just weird reading the work instructions for an employee of Jeffrey Epstein. Like, try to anticipate the needs of Mr. Epstein, Ms. Maxwell, and their guests. Make guests feel pampered and welcome. Always address guests by their name. Do not discuss personal problems with the guest. It's just like, what a strange glimpse into the life of this notorious sex criminal.
Yeah, I mean, a ridiculously rich person. So I did find two other documents that had bananas. One is like a complaint of Ghislaine Maxwell from prison that she hasn't been given non-vegetarian meals and that she was given inedible food such as frozen black bananas.
All right.
Yeah.
Because you were living
Anyway.
for banana.
Okay, anyway, we can move on to more.
Do you have any more hot banana news?
What was this third one? Yeah, no, whatever. Other stuff that's just like really hard to parse. I mean, it seems like quite an interesting job to be a journalist, like a real journalist or a real investigator who's digging through this stuff, looking for correlations that add up to evidence of crime. But anyway.
Or if you accidentally put something in there like... if you see one of the sex slaves running away, make sure to trip them so the security guys catch them or something, in the butler manual.
Yeah, there's a lot of net and trident related material. Let's get back to like national security stuff. I have a little sort of historical footnote or potentially the future here. One of the big reasons Taiwan is such a hotbed of international interest is because their semiconductor manufacturing is so valuable to international trade. Like, they're one of the few places where we get our semiconductors, and it's very difficult to make them because it's so easy to introduce impurities into the manufacture of them. But if anyone from the People's Republic of China in government is listening to this, there's an alternative. You don't have to go kill millions to get those semiconductors you want. What you could do is go to space.
Dude, that's so close. It's less than 100 miles away.
Yeah, right. I think that's shorter than the Taiwan Strait.
What's kind of funny? Both me and Phil, we both went like this, and both of us in our heads were like drawing. It's like how far across the Taiwan Strait? How far is the
hypotenuse here?
And you just said exactly what I was thinking. We both did that. Well, anyway, ridiculous.
Anyways, this is a startup from Cardiff, of all places, in Wales, called Space Forge. And what they did was they sent up a microwave-sized factory up into orbit, and they have demonstrated that they are able to use its furnace to create plasma, which is able to reach temperatures of about 1,000 degrees Celsius. And because of the microgravity of a object in orbit and the lack of potential air contaminants, they're able to create perfect semiconductor 3D structures.
I guess it kind of makes sense. You need all these biohazard protection. You need seismic protection. You need all this crazy facility on Earth to get the conditions right. manufacture stuff this tiny and precise.
I didn't know like the practical requirements for semiconductors. It was interesting to read about them because to make a semiconductor, you're like making this 3D structure inside of the thing where you need to align the structure on like an atomic level. You have to arrange the molecules inside of the semiconductor. And like to be able to do that, it's like you need incredibly specific conditions. But like if you send the whole thing up into space, it's a lot easier to achieve those conditions. Well, I mean, you have to send
Except
it
for
to
the
space, so
space.
that's a pretty big question. But you know, they demonstrated that they were able to do this, that they were able to send up their little factory and create the conditions where they can make semiconductors. So yeah, like that. I don't know. What do you guys think? Is that like going to be a potential solution to some of the limits we run up against now? Or
as long as
or
we can
do you
get
think this is just a gimmick?
the price of sending stuff to orbit to a reasonable level, then it could be. If it stays super duper expensive, then probably not.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually there should be lots of manufacturing in space. There should be lots of people in space. We should all, get out there. I'm like a space guy, pro space. But I mean, this does seem like one of many competing technologies and, seems pretty early stage. So, still a long way from making economic sense. And so, yeah, not really likely to
David is
make
the
a huge
opposite of a
dent.
science journalist, dude. I bet if you read an article about this, it's like world-changing technology set to completely overturn how we manufacture semiconductors.
Yeah, you're being entirely too reasonable for the hype cycle right now.
Yeah, sorry. It does have a cool name, though, so that should help with funding.
Space Forge, good. I agree. Great marketing. Yeah, I think that's all well said. So I think the solution to this is to cut science spending and education spending and really let the free market handle it and call it a day.
We have AI to do our thinking for us now anyway, right?
Exactly. AI designing AI. Yes.
I'm ready to be one of the giant blimp people in WALL-E, dude. Just float around in space, robots clean up everything. I don't have to do anything, Perfect,
Lovely.
right?
Dude, so I was actually really on a roll, waking up in the wee hours of the morning, reading random government documents.
That's great.
I was.
Does sound like a cure for insomnia.
It didn't help. But anyway, I actually I read some of this. There was I was referred to it from a New York Times article, so I also read the New York Times article. There's this fundraising report that these PACs are required to file, and MAGA Inc., a Trump super PAC, raised more than $100 million in the second half of 2025.
Good. That's what they need, more money.
Right. A couple notable contributions. There was $25 million from Greg Brockman and his wife. Greg Brockman is a co-founder of OpenAI. There was a really funny, to me anyway, quote by Brockman. He had praised, because shockingly, this was all correlated with him getting invited to a fancy dinner party. After the dinner party, he said that he supports the Trump administration's willingness to engage directly with the AI community and approach emerging technology with a growth-focused mindset. He indicated,
is that like when you make a avatar on Grok? It's like, is that interacting with the AI community? Like, I have a busty anime girlfriend, so I am interacting with the AI community.
Right. I think what he means is he talks to me. He treats me like I'm important so he can have my money. I have too much. He also indicated that the issue was personal for his wife, who has used AI to help deal with complex chronic conditions. So
American healthcare's so bad, or tens of millionaires have to turn to AI because they can't afford to go to the doctor.
Right. It's like, yeah, it's like, so she's worse off now, right? Like, I just thought that was pretty pathetic. Anyway, they're getting ahead of the bubble bursting because they're going to need a bailout soon. So making sure to grease that. Another $20 million came from Forrest Dax, parent company of Crypto.com, just because they love his strength, peace through strength, and all his good governance and his thoughtful policy positions. Yeah. And probably they also are looking for a pardon at some point once word of whatever it is there.
It's probably because Trump is like really, really openly pro-crypto because he got a lot of donations from crypto. It's kind of a cycle. It's like,
Yeah.
you guys are going to give me money. I'm going to throw money into the crypto money machine. And they're like, great, we'll throw you more money so we
Right.
can make money by grifting.
Right, because he does 180 on it, right? I think like you need to continue to bribe him. You can't just bribe the guy once.
No, I mean, he's demonstrated that. Like, you need to keep the bribes coming.
I mean, this is
He's
America,
fickle.
dude. You can't even just pay for heated seats. That's a subscription, right? Why should bribes be any different?
Exactly.
Back in my day, that you could bribe someone once and get their loyalty. Now with this subscription model for everything, you got to keep the bribes coming every month.
Bribe inflation. What about bribe affordability? It's a hoax. Jack Smith, he was deposed a while ago, like, I don't know, a couple weeks ago or something.
Not deposed like Maduro.
Yeah, no, not like that.
Right.
By the House, not the Navy. And yeah, his deposition was released, and I read most of it. It's kind of interesting. We'll have another segment on it coming up soon. But suffice it to say, the big bombshell where he admits that it was all a witch hunt didn't happen. So there was no such bombshell.
Yeah. In a sense, all prosecutions are a witch hunt. If you just kind of presuppose that witches are real.
It's always a witch hunt, but sometimes there's witches.
Yeah, okay, yes. Yeah, prosecutions, they are like trying to catch people for wrongdoing. That's true.
Yeah.
Big if true.
Yeah, I mean, and there was a lot of interesting stuff that Jack Smith had to say, so anyway, we'll talk about that more later.
More on that later.
And then in one final small piece of news that may have bigger implications, the U.S. Postal Service changed one of its rules. They changed the way postmarks work. Instead of being the day that you mail it, it will now be the day that it arrives at the regional sorting facility. So no longer will you actually be able to tell when somebody mailed something exactly. You'll just be able to tell somewhat.
So this must just be because the Trump administration is so dedicated to accurate record keeping.
But this makes things less accurate.
I mean, this is to steal elections.
Yeah, this is because it'll invalidate a lot of mail-in ballots because they just require that they're postmarked before Election Day. So now, if you mail it on Election Day, you do mail-in voting on Election Day, your vote will probably no longer be counted because the postmark won't be applied on Election Day. And therefore, when the election office receives it, they'll see that it was postmarked later and not do it. It also affects a lot of like random laws and stuff about like mortgages and various record keeping, like anything that the government is like regulating about stuff going through the mail refers to the postmark date. So this is going to like mess with a lot of stuff. Seems pretty stupid.
Yep.
Yeah.
This just goes to show that we just can't have nice things. Like it's a convenience for so many people to be able to send in their ballots by mail because we're able to count them on the day, and it's like you don't have to worry about them as much, but now you have to worry about them a lot. So probably this is something you can do to help audience. Ask around if your friends and colleagues are planning to vote by mail and maybe encourage them to do it in person and help them out if they need help getting to a polling place or if they need coverage at work. Or
do it early if you're going to mail it in.
Do it early if you're going to mail it in. Or maybe just, I don't know, man. I just feel like there's going to be huge invalidations of mail-in ballots next election cycle, and we should just do our voting in person.
That's how I feel, but not everyone can do that.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying, try to help people cover and
make the effort this particular election cycle if you can.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's been
do what you can to enable people to do in-person voting.
Another false ending to the episode of Info Hazard.
Yeah.
Like, subscribe, leave a comment, and this is the real end. Goodbye.
Bye.